We did a run through, but I think it's recording. This session is being recorded. Does it look like it? Okay, all right, let's go.
Very good. Let's call a meeting order. Please rise.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Renee, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Ms. Orthwine, Mr. Lyons,
Here.
Vice Mayor Stanley,
Here.
Mayor Morgan.
Here. We've been presented with the minutes from our last meeting on December 9th. Are there any changes, comments, questions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I move they be approved as presented.
Renee?
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Orthwine,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley.
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Any changes to the agenda, Mr. Dunn? Very good. Let's move on then. Our next meeting will be February 10th at 9 a.m. for anyone who wishes to attend. Public comment, anyone wish to speak on any topic, Mr. Gainer?
Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Believe it or not, 16 years ago, at the end of this month, Mayor Koch called me and said, can you meet tomorrow on the lawn in front of the building? And the subject was the takeover of Riney Breezes 16 years ago, believe it or not. We have reason to believe that there are people within Riney who are anxious to sell the town rather than invest their money in very expensive redo of the western part of the town, which, as you know, is underwater at in the fall. So we believe that there will be a bill of some kind offered at their annual meeting, which is in February. And we have no idea whether people will approve it or not approve it. It will be open for shareholder vote. But this is deja vu. This is exactly what happened 16 years ago. And I'm only pointing this out because obviously, if the decision is to sell the property, it will have an enormous impact on folks who live to the north or the south. And although there's nothing you can do or should do, but I just think you should be aware of it, because as you think about issues that are local to Gulfstream, they might be impacted by substantial changes certainly in our traffic patterns. You can imagine what would happen if they hauled off a bunch of trailers and started construction of a major development. So this is just a heads up, but it's also a reminder that the coalition has been around now for 16 years, and we're still trying to do the best we can to maintain the ambiance, the stability, and everything else on the background.
Thanks, Bob. We appreciate all your efforts and Christine's as well. Florida Coalition is very valuable. And the Riney Breezes issue is one that is certainly a hot topic. It's something we need to look into, pursue. All right, let's move on. Anyone else wish to speak? Here.
Good morning. My name is Peter Ryan. My wife and I and 2 yellow labs live down the street, 3550 Gulfstream Road. We've owned the property for approximately 13 years. For many of these years, we've lived with a problem which no one to date has been able to resolve. It involves one of the residents driving a golf cart at high speed up and down the lower streets, dragging along a dog on a leash, which is running alongside our car. It's always caused a problem for others walking their dogs on the street. The running dog lunges and barks at those walking. In return, the walking dogs react. To avoid this chaos, we typically all jump into someone's driveway or turn a corner to get out of the way. This can quickly evolve into a dangerous situation when cars and trucks are also on the same area. We ask why one person is allowed to frighten and scare everyone else walking their dogs. The ordinance reads as follows, section 30-1, operation of golf carts on town streets. It is prohibited for golf carts to tow any scooter, bicycle, skateboard, wagon, or other conveyance. We're not asking for you to create a whole new ordinance, merely modify the existing ordinance by adding golf. This ordinance was originally created for safety purposes. The above recommended change should also be made for safety purposes. It is a logical addition to the existing ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Peter? I'm just trying to envision what you've described. So the golf cart goes down the street, so Polo or Gulfstream Road.
Right.
And it's a left-hander holding a leash on a dog.
Yeah, and I've also seen situations where there's one hand holding the dog, the other one on the phone. Like, how's he driving? No idea. But they're like, yes, that's how it works.
Peter, I think we need to amplify that because I'm seeing what's happening. When this car and this dog approaches stationary walking dogs, the dogs that are walking are threatened. And so I've seen your dogs, other dogs, so they have. Yeah, and it's, it's creating a situation that intimidates the other dogs who are just simply walking along. And I think that's the problem. It's not by itself running is not the issue, it just threatens the other dogs.
And so the other people, what they're doing is they're working there today, when she sees them coming, the cart, she has to run to pick her dog up. I've had a situation where my wife's taking my two dogs out for a walk. And then she comes back to me and I said, what happened? And she said, she's going by, I can't go out. So you adjust your life depending on where this person is with the dog that should threaten their own dog.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Anyone else wish to speak? If not, let's move on to town manager's report, update on our tree replacement.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have a date for scheduled for the spring tree, that's February 6th.
Okay.
Then we have an update on security cameras, trades.
Mr. Nazar, you want to update? This has been given a flyer here by Mac.
Thank you, Mayor. So we do have a flyer, which is the LPR, the license plate reading cameras that are utilized by Ocean Ridge. So a few weeks ago, I went with the town manager and Captain Hasley to meet with Chief Jones from Ocean Ridge to talk about how he utilizes his camera system at Ocean Ridge. He was very complimentary of the LPR cameras, which of course, and just to sort of explain how they work, they're not video cameras, but only take photo images. However, from those photo images, they can pull information about the registration from the database the company uses. And per Chief Jones, they can also identify the make and the model of the vehicle with about a 75% accuracy. So of course, this would seem to be a very beneficial tool for our department to use. But just sort of on the flip side of that, I'd like to just remind the town commission that the vehicle thefts are back to their normal levels of 1 annually. And, after a spike a few years ago where we got a number. And then of course, those thefts were not limited to just sort of the late night hours. They would occur during the day as well. So I just want to explain maybe how the usefulness of the cameras would be somewhat limited, and then the beneficial. So just about the limited usefulness, it was suggested at the December meeting that Gulfstream target 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., for example. And certainly that's a good idea, but obviously, like you just said, if crimes are committed outside that window, there'd be limited utility. We have hundreds of students coming in to the school every day, dozens of construction projects that are active around town with contractors and their employees coming in and out. So it'd be hard to utilize this camera to prevent crimes during the day just because of the sheer volume of traffic we see even in the core that are here for a legitimate purpose. So that broad information would allow, a bad actor or someone to come in without really being noticed. It's also of limited evidentiary value because you're just getting a picture of the vehicle and the license plate. You're not getting, a suspect or anything like that. No picture of the person who's committing the crime. The value that we would see would be comparable to how Chief Jones utilizes the camera, which is a deterrent through proactive policing. So as Mr. Delafield noted last month, Chief Jones operates the cameras in a way that identifies vehicles that maybe should not be in town during those late night hours. And then the officers are able to direct their attention to that area quickly before a potential crime is committed. I have a PowerPoint that we'll get to in a minute that shows where the cameras are installed in Ocean Ridge, just some of them at sort of those pinch access points. For example, like Place Soleil, there's only one way in, one way out. If someone's vehicle is registered in Ocean Ridge, for example, the officers know that if someone's going home, it's 10:30, okay, that's someone that has a valid reason to be in the area. But if it's registered to an area where there's known car theft activity or they get a lot of criminals, they can respond quickly and show a presence. So again, that goes with the whole proactive policing and showing a presence. So obviously it's not illegal to drive around Ocean Ridge at night, so no arrests are made and vehicles can't be pulled over, but by showing a presence, they can prevent crimes from happening before they actually occur. Just a little bit about the LPR cameras. They use solar and cellular technology, so it does not need to be hardwired. It can alert to laptops in the squad cars or PD phones. Dispatch is not involved. It goes from the system directly to the in-car laptops or phones. And Chief Jones said the company worked with him to place the cameras where he wanted them so they could blend in if that's possible. So that's just kind of the nuts and bolts of how, the potential benefits and drawbacks. And if I can just get someone to start the PowerPoint. Now we'll just kind of go into, the aesthetics, and I hope everyone can see. I don't know if you can make it full screen, but so here's just an example. I guess I'll stand up on.
I feel like I'm in Delray Beach now. So you see there, that this is a Honda Accord, so it's, small but full-size car, and you see that that's the camera. So it's on top of a pole with the cellular device on the top, and that actual camera is, it's very high in the air, pointing toward what you're driving by. In the center, here's kind of how it blends in as you're driving in, and then as you're driving by, how it's kind of camouflaged. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see how it's, I kind of just circled those so you can see, a little bit better about how it blends in or how it could potentially blend in or was chosen to blend in rather by Ocean Ridge. You can go to the next slide. We just have another. I just took a few photos. I apparently did not trigger any notification from the police department. I'm walking around with my suspenders taking pictures. So again, you see coming in, it kind of blends in. Obviously, we don't have poles, we don't have wires, we're underground, so there is a difference there. In the center here, you can see, and then as you're driving by on the opposite side, and then if you go to the next slide, you'll see again just how that's circled, how they blend in fairly well. or they can blend in fairly well. They're not as large as maybe I thought when we first started talking about this. If you want to go to the next slide, I think we have maybe. Yeah, and then here's another one with limited screening. It's on the side on the water as you drive in. So again, driving in, that's what it looks like as you pass it. It's very clear. It's not super obtrusive. And again, you've got power lines and poles also in the area that that Gulfstream doesn't have. And if you want to just go again, see my little circles. And then again, that's just kind of a close up of, you can go to the next slide. That's a close up of what the camera system looks like. And then you can go to the next slide again, just as a size comparison. Again, that's a Honda Accord full size sedan as it compares to driving by. It's fairly tall. I wouldn't estimate how tall it is. You can just see the aesthetic impact. If you go to the next slide, that's the front view. So again, you can see it is it's fairly tall. And can be hidden, but it does need to get access to the sunlight to charge. The specifics of how much sun it needs, how many hours, all this, that would be something that we would have a vendor come in and discuss with us, possibly if we're interested in pursuing this, where they could be located. Like if you're driving in Danyon, there's a lot of foliage covering. So I don't know how you could power that. If you would need to push it down to Gulfstream Road intersection as opposed to on A1A. So that would be kind of the next step. If the commission finds that this is something that we want to pursue, Greg and I could reach out to a vendor, have a discussion. I'm sure we could piggyback. If you choose this vendor, they probably have static pricing. So this is a system that I think definitely has some benefits given our meeting with Chief Jones. And we would just, at this point, want to see what the aesthetic impact is, where they would be located to provide maximum policing value.
The flock safety flyer we've been provided, is this the Ocean Ridge equipment?
Yes, sir.
Comments?
Yeah, Jay, is it instantaneous to computer screen? So, well, it's just a photograph. There's a comment here about LPR evidence within 3 hours. What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know if that, I don't know what that refers to, but it was, in speaking with Chief Jones, he said, we'd have someone at the north side of town, and we'd go to the south side of town, and they get an alert, and they'd be able to respond almost immediately and be in the area. So I think that the information they're getting, it takes a picture, it queries the database, and it provides the officer with that information very quickly.
Well, it looks like you have two types of cameras. There's a Sparrow camera and the Sparrow camera real time. One's a little bit more money than the other one. So obviously the one has the LTR, but I think it's added prior to start. So that's one that has the real time.
So, yeah, I think, Mr. Quinn, I don't know if that, if one of them maybe for like an HOA use or something like that, whereas, we would have the ability to access this information in real time since we're a police department.
Do you know whether, as you noted, because of the vegetation, placing them in strategic locations could be a problem? So, what about battery operated? Do you know whether you'd actually require a little more effort, but it could be an alternative to hard wiring?
I mean, yeah, that's something that we would need to look into. And again, I think the cost to hardwire would be very high. So ideally, it would be solar. But if there is a way to put it in a location that is more aesthetically acceptable to the town, I think that would probably be worth an investment to look into to see what the hardwiring consideration would be. Again, that's up to the commission, and we can get that information from the vendor.
The battery power would certainly be more aesthetically pleasing. You wouldn't have that solar panel, which is the predominant feature. I wonder if they do offer that.
Yeah, and I think that most of the entrances that we're talking about are going to be followed. Maybe down by Cloverleaf home, there's a little, right here would be okay, but
Well, you
what-
wrote it all.
between the two of those would be really good.
Yeah, you need to put them on Gulf Stream.
Yeah.
And then there's the aesthetics issue. Other comments?
The question,
Well, maybe you should find out about that.
Yeah. How many are you talking about? I mean,
I mean, it'd really be up to the commission, the residents, seeing what they want to do. Ideally, we would have one at all the access points. I mean, if we're talking about the core, it is a limited number. We talk about, in Harbor and 1300 block, Place Hustle. I mean, these are all
Yeah.
places that, we can manage it. I think the benefit that we had, that we have currently of having access to LPR data is that it just drives up and down A1A. I mean, they can be passing through town. I mean, it's everyone. So there's no realistic threat or awareness that we need to be, coming into town. But when you turn off of A1A and come into Gulfstream, I mean, you're going to be Gulfstream. You're not driving through. You're coming in and you're here. Right. Same thing with Place Soleil. You turn into Avenue au Soleil, you're in Gulfstream and you're not going through, right? So we would probably target all the entrances into town where there's no exit, right? So anything off of A1A or, it's
So it'd be 5 in the core. 1 in Plaza Soleil, 6.
Wouldn't know, so-
and then, I mean, in Harbor, I mean, some of these are, some of these are private roads, so. Yeah, I think you're talking about cost? Yeah, I think it's 2,400 annually, and the initial investment is minimal per payment. It's more of like a, almost like a rental agreement, right? You're leasing, right? Because you're really paying for access to the database, right? It's like a printer. The printer sheet ink is expensive, so it's the camera is provided, but you access to the database and the functionality and everything is where the cost comes. So if we're looking at 5 cameras, 10 cameras, we're looking at significant amount of money a year. But again, the value's there and the aesthetic is acceptable and can be managed. It's something that we will continue to look into it in your direction. If you have any other thoughts, obviously we have the aesthetics. We'll get an idea of the cost, where they could be located. I think we could have the vendor come next month and provide a presentation if we want to bring it to that level, or it could be just the town manager and myself having a discussion with the vendor and bring that to the slide if we're not ready to bring the vendor.
well, one thing I would like to do, once you do more analysis, is what the chief and captain think about how it allows them to have another tool in their box to more effectively police. I can think of that as a concept, but I'd like to know the police department thinks it's a good option.
but how far do we want to go? Like the Spence property has what the houses down there, and it's a development, and then we have your house. But, no, you have other houses that have entrances off A1A, and how do we, and the one Spence property, those houses, there were so many down there. There's some off A1A and some down that subdivision. How would we do that? I mean, if we do some,
No,
I'm always saying we have to be equal.
absolutely. We do have a lot of private roads. So another question is, if it's a private road, do we have an easement or ability to place it? So the residents would have to allow that. And if it's, for example, Lemon Hill, the Spence property,
Yeah,
it would have to be their association granting us permission to do that. Right, and I think that a lot in Ocean Ridge, I think they are, I want to say they're paid or contributed by the residents. So maybe if, for taking your example of the Spence property, if those 6 residences want to do it, then it'd be $2,400 annually, and they'd have to grant us the ability to place it, right? And they could, you know, figure out where, you know, we could talk about where we place it, how, you know, and all those things. And I think that could be similar to a lot of the private roads, that if they want this leasing option, you know, then that could be a contribution that they make. It's minimal when you think year to year, but, you know, for the town, to take on, a large number, you know, especially for private roads where we don't necessarily have easements, you know, but certainly the core, you know, it's public and we have easements, we can place those in private.
Other questions, comments? Anyone wish to comment from the public? Yes, Christine.
Good morning, happy new year. Christina Hassel. The only comment that I wanted to make is the second and the third slide that you saw where the license plate recognition cameras look kind of out of place and just kind of standing there and start. Those were two of the three islands where we purchased them ourselves. We would have had them in the middle of the street with Lakota. So it was very purposeful that there wasn't any foliage or anything around it, because we wanted that signal as somebody came on our island that they were actually there. So I just wanted to, I mean, they can be as hidden as the first slide or as obvious as the second and the third slide. So, and again, I can't say enough things about it. So thank you.
Great, thanks. Well, I guess I think sort of the direction would be to get more information on this. Whether we want to have a presentation by a vendor meeting. What do you think?
And see what it looks like.
Why don't you bring them in?
Yeah.
Bring them in, have a presentation, have them throw a map up. See where we put them, and after some input from the residents, if they come to the next meeting about locations and things that they've seen in the past, if they want to hear, et cetera, there, I think that's, maybe a little faster that way.
Great.
And Greg, find out the battery thing, if they have to change these things every couple of days, no one's doing it. To find out the battery, if they're battery powered, which a lot of them I think would have to be, how long does that take?
And private roads. Okay, that's.
Yeah, I mean, include the private roads in sitting in county, we can add 10 to 11.
We could have a lot of poles going up there.
Yeah, I just, you know. Somehow to do it, I don't know.
Let's take it to the next step. Right, thank you. Let's move on to waste procurement.
Thank you, Mayor. So, the agreement the town has with Waste Management expires March 31st, 2024, after 30 years. 4 years ago, Waste Management wanted to increase the residents' waste hauling fees more than 25% from 1 year to the next. In doing some research about that, I discovered the town of Southwest Ranches in Broward County had a similar issue, and they went out to bid, and those bid documents included such language as the contractor shall provide residential collection service with as little noise and disturbance as possible. So it seemed like a very specific affluent community doing a procurement that was comparable to what we would be looking for. That I reached out to Southwest Ranches, and they had nothing but great things to say about Mitch Kessler of Kessler Consulting, who focuses on waste procurement. So he does the procurement documents, he assists communities with not necessarily difficult, but, you know, unique situations. And then also just, you know, your West Palm Beach and, you know, your largest cities as well. We got him on board, and we utilized him to negotiate with Waste Management a few years ago from that 25% increase to only 6% with an annual cost COLA adjustment of 4%, which was significantly less than what Waste Management was asking for. I think we felt like that was an extremely successful negotiation, in part because they knew that this was the guy that would put together a solid procurement, and then they'd have to bid for it as opposed to just renewing. So I just want to let the commission know that I did reach out to Mr. Kessler and reminded him that, okay, this 5-year extension that we got with Waste Management is coming to a conclusion, and we might want to bring you on. And he said, absolutely, that'd be something he would be willing to do. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm looking to reach out to him and get a piggyback for procurement of waste hauling services that we can enter into with him. I don't have a cost estimate. It's going to be whatever his hourly rate is. We can certainly provide him with as much information as possible, but I just didn't want you to kind of bring it to you without giving you a heads up first. And by statute, we've reached the end of what's permitted. You know, you can retain a waste hauler for up to 30 years. So ideally, we would do this once, get it done properly, continue our back door, side door, great service, and he would assist with that. And that's just kind of my update on that issue.
So it must not do that.
That's correct.
That's the statute. Right. He was very helpful last time. And I thought his fees were reasonable, so by all means, let's see. Thank you very much. ARPB meeting, our next meeting for the ARPB is January 26th at 8:30. Anyone who wishes to attend that meeting. Mr. Dunham, the finance report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to tell you that your balance sheet and cash budget report was completed and prepared by Melita. This is her first time, and she did a very good job.
Very good.
And you can see here in some of the notes, this is represents 25% of our budget. You can also see that 85% of our ad valorem tax distributions have already been received after just one quarter of the year. And our revenue and expenses for the year are trending as we expected.
How's the permitting arrangement going?
It's going well. I mean, the amount of time that approving the permits has significantly reduced. Right? I mean, that's the feedback.
Right.
Yeah.
May I have one observation? As we all know, we carry sizable balances, particularly this time of year. I was looking at the interest income, and that wasn't a significant issue a year ago. Now we can really get some decent rates. And so 4,000 on $11 million is not much of a return. So maybe we should look into some alternative investments. If you put a 4% on it, the number should be a much bigger number.
What's current investment?
That's partially. Well, I think the interest bearing account. Yeah, but they're different. Of course, for example, the golf club, what it does is it invests in various FDIC investments. We're getting over 4%. Here we're getting less than 10 basis points. So we need to look into that. As long as the money is secure, I mean, we can generate some meaningful income.
Did you pass that information on to staff?
And we're going to be talking about financial management here later in the agenda, as you can see, and that's certainly part of our discussion.
Good. So, thanks, Paul. Appreciate that. Very good. Chief, please report.
Yes, your request to be accepted as submitted. We wrote 7 citations last month to different constructions of the mandates or the activity areas. Other than that, I'm sure we was aware of the incident we had 2 nights ago. If you're on County Road, I can't talk a lot about it, on it's confidential information. However, we were backed up by Delray PD. They responded very quickly and set up their command post in their armored vehicle in a very timely manner. And did a really wonderful job of helping us out in this week. It did have a good ending to it, so that's I'm hoping for.
Good. Yeah, Delray was very prompt on it. Thank you very much, Chief. Let's move on to items for commission action, the Gulfstream School, Dr. Ray Smith, you expect.
Mayor, I've got to recuse myself on items 9A, 1 and 2 for the record.
But now we're covering the trash.
I'll just introduce this item quickly, and Dr. Smith. So, Dr. Smith approached us, about increasing the school enrollment. And we mentioned to him that we currently have a development agreement in place that caps the number of students at 250. That agreement has been in place, I want to say, since at least, I think 94. And then there was an amendment to that agreement in 2001, which allowed certain other things that were outside of the agreement, but continue to maintain the cap at 250 students. And if we're looking at any historical background on that, I would ask Commissioner Orthwein to maybe chime in, because looking at the minutes, she was in there for that discussion. Currently, like I said, we do have a limitation for a development agreement of 250 students. And that also in there, that there's a prohibition that says no building shall be erected or expanded outside the building envelope, which is essentially the current school building as it exists today. And then, of course, Dr. Smith came and asked for a fairly innocuous small structure. And we told him that, everything looked acceptable, it has to look nice, consistent with the rules for minor accessory structures in town. It's match the architectural style of the principal building. And we said, but let's look at the development agreement real quick. And then we found out that we would have to amend the development agreement to do this project as well. So because of that, we asked him to come in and ask or get the commission's appetite for amending the development agreement. We would ask that you take action by motion on both of these two items, whether or not it's up or down. And that would just be to direct staff, myself, or the town attorney to modify the development agreement to accommodate or to not. So that's kind of what we're here for today, to make that decision. And then, of course, if you do approve, so the students is kind of self-explanatory. It's either up or down, and that will give the school direction. With the building outside the building envelope, it will still have to go through the whole process. It would be a level 3 architectural site plan review for setbacks and everything that would go through the whole from soup to nuts. This would not be an approval of that project so they can start building. It would just be authorizing an amendment to the development agreement, and then we would process that application like we would any other application. So with that, thank you, Dr.
Before we commence, any ex parte communications on this issue? I have spoken with a number of people at the school, including Dr. Smith. I've also visited the site. All right, Dr. Smith.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us today. I thought I was coming here to ask for one modification to the developers agreement. Thanks to Trey, I'm here actually asking for 2 modifications to the developers agreement. Before I begin, I do want to acknowledge that the school is over-enrolled at this point. And I do want to acknowledge that we're doing this backwards to some extent. I do apologize for that. As you may know, COVID, the pandemic was a unique moment in the life of schools all over South Florida. Enrollment has flourished at every school. Gulfstream was no exception to that. We had many families moving in from out of town. Our yield rate went from 88 to 89% to 99%. To virtually every offer of admission we made was accepted. That's always a gamble in this enrollment game. We were also, the talk among the heads at the time was whether this was temporary. Right? These people would come and then they would turn around and they would leave. Well, it turns out that they're staying.
right? We are sure that they are remaining with us, and they are wonderful families, and we are happy to have them. When I arrived at Gulfstream, the enrollment was 232, and the school was unable to meet its budget at that number. Cost of education has skyrocketed over the last couple of decades. It continues to grow. We can no longer meet budget at 250. We do endeavor to cover our expenses with our operating program. So that is one of the reasons, the main reason that we are seeking an adjustment to the enrollment cap. Our facilities can accommodate 300 students without building any additional buildings. And we feel that we have controlled traffic. And I do believe the Gulfstream Police would attest that our car lines move more efficiently with 293 students in the school than they move with 232 students in the school. So that is my rationale for an ask to modify the agreement from 250 students to 300 students, if that could answer the questions.
So I have a question. It's more administrative. This decision to amend the agreement while it's separate from approving the incremental building. You send out a notice, you'll be sending out notices on the incremental building? Like the neighbors who were adjacent?
Yes, we would do our normal.
And so I just wonder whether those neighbors shouldn't have some benefit of sharing their view on expanding the enrollment, because it impacts them. Obviously impacts the entire community. Bottom line, I'm in favor of increasing the enrollment. Is it okay to make some comments now? Absolutely. The school has been an integral part of the town. The Gulfstream Golf Club was established 24, thereabout. Now it's out to 25, school 38. It was established for seasonal families. Many would play polo. It's been a great asset to the town. I also think it allows for younger families to be in this town, which I think is a nice demographic mix. But at the same time, there's a negative, and that's the volume of calls. And just by chance, I drove by the school yesterday, shortly after the students who were being released. I just called the police. Literally on Lakeview, the cars were backed up. So while I think it has improved, and I can see the necessity from an economic perspective why you need these school life. We also want to see the school prosper because that's good for the community. At the same time, I think there's a lot of volume of cars, and I'd like to see a win-win where if there was a way that you could bring more of the students in, carpools, buses. So that's my personal perspective. I don't know how practical that is. I'm sure a lot of parents can try to bring the children to school. But at the same time, I don't know what percentage of the student body lives, in the town of Gulfstream, you suppose.
Well, roughly 20 or more students walk to school in the morning. So that would give you some idea. Most of those families are multi-student families.
Well, I'll comment on preference. I would hope that, given that the community in the town of Gulfstream is accommodating its volume of cars, that families move into this town, or families who are established living here have children, that, you have to be academically qualified, but they're given some for lack of better word, traffic, because they live in.
Indeed, I agree with you, and I would say that we already do that. Families that move into this town tend to have children who are mission appropriate for the school. Many of the families we've admitted over the past year and a half, 2 years have been people who live in the town or live very close to the town.
So I just, those are my views, but administratively, before we vote on the increases in student volume, should be some notice given to, I don't know. Or you don't think that's necessary?
I don't think on this particular topic, it's on the construction of the additional building. But you raised a point, Dr. Smith, perhaps you could explain what the school has done in terms of addressing traffic, how it's changed from the way it used to be.
So there used to be one system for drop off and dismissal, or release, if you will. And that was coming in on Gulfstream Road and exiting again on Gulfstream Road and going down C Road to reach A1. We split the traffic now, both at arrival and dismissal. So we have traffic coming in the traditional way. Families with with children in grades 4 to 8 split to the right. They unload by the 12th Chapel steps. The Oleander Gate is there. Then they go out the A1 exit. Our car lines, I time them almost every day. They are 10 to 18 minutes in length. But if there's a landscaping truck on the road, or if there's a bridge that gets stuck, or there's a train, on those days, in those circumstances that we can't control, you can expect for there to be some more traffic. On an ordinary basis, our lines are in and out in 10 minutes, less than 20 at the longest.
Captain Hasley, your observation, traffic?
Thank you. As Dr. Gray explained, their new traffic plan has helped immensely. In regards to Commissioner Lyons' words backed up sometimes. It appears like all parents, everybody wants to be first. That's what creates the line. Once the line starts flowing, it moves pretty rapidly, and how they split the dismissal over the arrivals, it's worked very well. It's just a few minutes of backup that they're waiting, and the parents show up early, and it causes some lines from time to time. I don't know if there's anything the school can do about that, to just make it come in and pick up and go, to shorten the lines. But we've monitored it. We have officers there 3 times a day, roughly 20 to 30 minutes at a time. And they've all said the same thing. Once the traffic starts flowing, it goes very smoothly. So it's been a good improvement.
Good, very good.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I think we would need to hear, or should need to hear from the people who are impacted by it, where these cars are queuing up in anticipation of Joe's arrival. I was probably on the other side of Johnny when this happened. I was on the board of the school when we negotiated that last agreement in 1994, was it? And we felt at the time, Dr. Smith, sorry, at the time it was going to be permanent. It was discussed at length. It went on for months at both the school level and also the town level, I believe. And there was even a conversation at that time that said they're probably sometime in the future they're going to come back and ask for more. And we said that we thought this was really a binding agreement. So I don't mean it can't be changed, but it was, if you read the history of it, it was thought to be permanent. And it was permanent really for protection of the people who are impacted by it, which are the people who live on the streets around it. So because that's what the reason why it was limited, it also had to do with it going up over the library and possibly the gymnasium. It also had to do with some expansion of the size of the school. So I do think if the major drawback or the limitation then was because of the traffic count, we certainly should hear from the people. Some of them were here earlier. We should hear from some of the people who are most impacted by it. At least I think we should do that. Okay? I don't live there, but if I did, I'd want to know that it was going to, of course, it's only 293. I don't know how it got to 293 when the cap's supposed to be 250. But, so they're darn near at that now, but I think we should hear from them, Scott. Not only on,
I've got no real objection, except we have testimony that the traffic pattern is actually moving faster than it was in 1994. You had, you know.
but what if we had 43 less students, it would move even faster? That's my point. I mean, I just think that I'm not impacted by it, but some people are impacted by it, and I think they have a right to hear it. That's just my comments. I remember the whole history of it. You were on the council.
Me too. You know, I think your new traffic pattern is great. I mean, there's just nothing but compliments about it. And I agree with Tom, when we did this agreement, the town was not quite as young as it is now. And it was to be, whatever, to the older residents, respectful is a good word, that not have the school controlling the town residents. I think 300 students, it's, I hate to see next, in 10 more years, you say 350 or 400. Because then that will, but I think the town has gotten so much younger and it's been a benefit to have all those young families. I think we can ask the residents near the school, but I think you have to be careful because I know someone just moved in, they go, oh, that school traffic, and I'm going, well, why don't you buy the house in the corner? I mean, the school was there before they bought the house, so I think that you have to be fair to both people. I mean.
So when it comes to enrollment of a school, there is a tipping point where we feel that we can continue to achieve our mission. And that tipping point would be 300. If you're managing the school on a day-to-day basis and you're seeing the magic that happens there, during the pandemic, we had a chance to see it at 232, at 250, at 260, at 270, 280, and 293 now. We feel that we are achieving the school's mission as strongly today as we ever have. But I would not want to see the school go over 300. I think that would be a real question mark as to whether we could continue to achieve the level of relationship building and personalized attention that we're able to achieve today.
How's the parking for your events? I mean, that's another thing because you're adding all these other families for parking at the school.
So we have 92 parking spaces, which is way more than we need for our faculty on a day-to-day basis. When we have events on campus, such as Grandparents' Day, we have to utilize the field for parking, which is fine. We can make sure everyone is accommodated there. For athletic contests, I completely acknowledge that we need to do a better job of the way we schedule that. We have scheduled double headers, so to speak, in the past. We can't do that anymore. We really shouldn't be doing that. It's not only is it a parking problem, but it's an inconvenience, I think, for families of both Gulfstream and the families of the teams that are competing with us.
I'm going to compliment the school on including the poor area, like when you're having events, even Gulfstream, always, you're very inclusive to the community. And I think that's a very positive public relations building.
Certainly endeavor to be good neighbors. We are happy to host community events. We've hosted several. We have permitted community members to use our facilities and technology to host board meetings of their own. And we frequently give up our parking lots for parties at private houses. We're happy to do so.
In fact, a meet and greet. School.
Indeed.
And another association. I served on the
Yes.
But what I saw there, just after the particular session, was that the school cannot continue with a ever increasing tuition. And you can see from the costs, Dr. Smith lists one of them here, which I think is a very good example. In 1994, the insurance cost was $42,000. This year it's $298,000. Extrapolate that to the need to have quality instructors, teachers, competing against other schools. And the costs just keep rising. A school, private school cannot continue to raise its tuition. And so it has to rely on some sort of growth and endowment. And I think the growth here has been easily handled. We didn't know it occurred. I don't know that Dr. Smith knew it occurred. It just kind of morphed. And we talked about that. Met with him about this. But the police have monitored it. They engaged a traffic study. They changed the traffic pattern, and it's handled the traffic better than it was when they had 240 students. So I think it's something that's necessary for the school. The school is necessary for the town. Therefore, it's in the best interest of the town of Gulfstream and the Gulfstream School. As far as tabling this to have other residents be notified and come in, I don't have a strong opinion on it. It's necessary, but I'll defer to the rest of the commission on it.
Yeah, we could just open up. Comment.
I was just gonna say,
Olivia, I need to.
Please,
impromptu,
say your name for the
I'd be curious to know,
State your name, please.
Olivia Lyons, new resident on County Road, and I have children in school. I'd be curious to know the percentage of new families into the core and the non-core that have bought homes in the last 5 years, that are actually active parents at the school. Because I think that would be an interesting study to understand, because I think it's driven house values up. I mean, I know I'm one of them. I know there are other families in this room that have recently purchased homes in the core. That value actually extends to the entire core. And I think it's really very important that this community continues to grow and actually morph into a much younger community, or younger than me actually. So I just would be curious if you had a view on that and if we could get some type of.
I think Jeremy touched on it.
I think the school is a wonderful asset for the community. We used to talk about that, who's going to control the school or the golf club, how's that? And the folks, and so I think the school has really been a very important part of the community. In the years.
But the demographic has changed since the
Absolutely.
90s.
I did, that's exactly, yeah.
We all came here, it was a much older community, much more seasonal.
Mhm.
Now it's younger. I mean, we see it with every application coming in here. It's younger and it's more permanent.
Yeah,
And that school is one of the magnets for it.
and it is increasing the prices of homes too, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's what you see.
I'm Michael Glennon. I live at 101 Lakeview Drive, which is the southeast corner of Lakeview and Gulfstream. So as my sprinkler heads will attest, given that they get 5 to 6 times a year or a month, it seems like I would argue that perhaps our house is maybe as affected as any, if not more. I mean, to Olivia's point, like, the school was certainly one of the reasons that we bought. I mean, my father's lived in Gulfstream part-time for 20-something years. My wife and I moved in 2019, or excuse me, 2020. And the school was no question one of the reasons that we bought and love living in Gulfstream. Being able to walk to school every morning is simply unmatched. And I think certainly younger or additional younger residents that recently moved in would agree with me. I fully support, despite the fact that the parking or the line situation often lines up past our house and around the corner to Lakeview. I think this is a no-brainer for the town. I mean, I think it continues to Olivia's point. It adds to all of our property values. It creates new residents, or new demand for residents to move in. The other thing I would say is, as a parent, I would also like to see the school continue to attract a diverse student body that is increasingly outside of Gulfstream. I think diversity of views and diversity of people add to the educational enrichment for everyone. So the ability to extend, to increase the school's admissions, where I certainly understand and respect the 1994 agreement, but I think that we've also, a lot of things have changed since then, so we should adapt to that as well. But I would like to see the school continue to attract the student body that will contribute to the enrichment of all the students and the community at large by bringing in additional folks from Gulfstream and elsewhere. So I personally am very supportive of this. And certainly I'm impacted by the car line, which, no question is sometimes a frustration, but the price tag. Thanks.
Anyone else wish to comment on this topic? Mr. Mayor?
I couldn't resist.
Take your name for the record.
Okay. I couldn't resist reminding us all that back in 15 years ago, when Briney was under siege, we had a big meeting in Delray with Delray Auditorium. And the only picture that came out of that meeting for the newspapers, which was heavily covered, was a picture of Christine and her son. And she was making the point that Briney, if it were to be redeveloped as planned, would mess up traffic something awful. And it was a very effective statement. And it also pointed out the fact that kids came from outside of Gulfstream to the Gulfstream school. And with all the construction that was planned, they would have a great deal of difficulty getting to the school. And I'm only pointing that out because I had made a remark earlier that we live on a barrier island. We don't have, we have one road essentially to get us from point A to point B. And if traffic is stalled insurmountably on the road, it will affect the quality of life for all of us, but in particular, it will affect the school. So it's another example of how all these things fit together. And coalition believes that the population on the barrier island should be fairly static, but also believes that we've got to get around. And the school would be adversely affected considerably if a major development happened right in the middle of the barrier.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else?
Hello, I am Maria Bonilla. We came to Gulfstream to live in Gulfstream at the corner of Gulfstream and Old School in 2010. And the reason why we were here was only and because we had 3 kids going into Gulfstream school. So I think the initiative to grow the school to 300 students, provided that it will make sure that the school continue to be very strong and will continue to attract a healthy body of students within the community from outside the community. I'm all in favor of it. I feel affected by the traffic, but I see it as a minor inconvenience compared to all the benefits that we get from the school.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I'm not being misread here, but I'm not opposed to this. I'd like to see it happen. I just was very active when the agreement was struck before. And the reason it was struck was for some of the reason the testimony we're getting here today. So I don't want anybody leaving the meeting thinking Tom's trying to block this. I'm not trying to block it. I had a job at Luther. I love the school. But I just, my point is that maybe we've heard enough from the people who are surrounded that are happy with it. But that was the big reason at the time. And I just thought we should let those people have an opportunity to speak. If we all feel enough of them, if we've heard it from enough of them in the area today to go forward, then I'm certainly not going to block it or vote against it.
Well, no, I didn't, obviously.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Do you think it's something we should include the community in? Just to be,
So, I just know that the school is, I'm sure, accepting and looking at enrollment figures for next year already. So if we could accommodate them now and say, you're permitted for next year, as we continue to look into it, I think that that would be beneficial and allow us to maybe, to Commissioner Smith's point, make sure that our residents are fully aware of what's happening. But I would not want to delay this decision, because I think the school is relying on, the income and enrollment figures. So
And I must say, they wanted to bring this to us at the last meeting, but because of how much we had on the agenda, we suggested they defer until this month. So perhaps your suggestion, Mr. Nazaro, is the way to go.
We're getting ready to do a newsletter. Would that be something that we would want to put in the newsletter?
Yeah.
And then that way everybody would
Yeah.
know?
I mean, it's on the agenda. As
Right.
you can always say, well, you know, it's on the agenda. Of course, people don't check.
Yeah, it was just a suggestion that we are in the process of doing a newsletter for the new year, so.
Yeah, I mean, that was my only point in Tom's was that, we just want to make sure we're inclusive of the people impacted. And if you look from the very beginning, I'm very much in favor of this. And again, I understand the cost of insurance. This is a good number for you. I can tell you that some of the other clubs, it's ugly. And, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to, but the interesting question is, if you're gonna have continued inflation, what you do in 20 years, I don't know, because you have the same challenge, but I'm not gonna be around to deal with that. So. But I'm very much in favor of it, as long as we have a process that allows people who might be impacted to voice their opinion. And I have to say, probably shouldn't say this publicly, but my brothers, sister-in-law have never complained about this. People right next door, who I've known a long time, never complained about it. So I don't think it's gonna be an issue, but we wanna be sure that we allow the citizens involved. That's,
So, very good. One other point I'd make is that the increase in student body leads almost necessarily to an increase in endowment funding. And that's really where the additional funds need to come from to maintain quality of a private school. You can't continue to raise tuition, and you can't continue to increase student body. So you find that happy medium. Here, they have a large school, I think 3,500 square feet under the 94 agreement of air conditioned space to be used for students. I've been walked through it. The students are being handled just the way I remember when my kids went to school. It does not feel crowded. So I view this as a necessary and positive development for the school and the town. Mr. Nazaro, how would you phrase the motion?
So at this point, we're still exploring the amendment. So I think that we can phrase a motion to, in the end, the development agreement needs to be amended. So if they get 300 for next year and then they have to whittle back down to 250 over a 5 or 10 year period, that would be, that would be incorporated in it, but we don't know what the end result is going to be.
I'm not sure how.
So, right, so I would just say, the school is going to be relying on whatever happens here today when they look at enrollment figures. So I would say we can have a motion to amend the development agreement to extend or increase the cap for school year 23-24 to 300 students. And that will be it. And then we'll continue to look at everything else. So we can incorporate that into whatever amendment that we end up with, whether it's a permanent cap to 300 or something else.
Well, what's being suggested is that notice we put out to the residents and at next month's meeting, hopefully we would have residents here to speak.
Sure.
And if they carry forward with, negative voice and persuade the commission to vote against this, what are you saying? bring up the motion again.
No, I'm saying we would just have,
It's only 22.
For 1 year. Yeah,
Actually,
for
not the
1
other
year.
one, but then we're not going to continue it to next.
Right, basically. Well, I guess, I mean, the way I look at it, 23, 24, we approve it, Next meeting, public comes in, comments, everybody loves it. We now make an adjustment to that resolution that will be currently approved it going forward.
correct.
Okay.
Does that make sense? You're the law, I'm not.
Yeah, no, no lawyer.
You want me to comment to that?
It works. And then this,
I don't anticipate a lot of residents coming in to complain about this. I really don't. I just want them to be, I want them to feel included in this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we always
But I
try to
don't
be
anticipate a lot of people.
So then,
I don't
can I make that
Yeah, so,
motion?
so I summarize that motion.
Yeah.
Mr.
I
Smith.
make a motion to amend the developers agreement, increasing the school's enrollment from 250 to 300 students for, at a minimum, the 2023-2024 school year. Okay.
I'll second. Or you can second.
Second.
Ms. Tracy?
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Orthwyne,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley.
Can't vote.
Oh, my bad, Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you.
let's move on then to the next issue.
Dr. Smith, you've done a great job.
Thanks. I
By the
appreciate
way,
it.
just for the record, the only reason my daughter choose that because of mother and father.
Okay, this, you're proposing building a refrigerator outside.
Correct, yes, proposal number 2, we would like to be able to offer an in-house dining services program at the school. This would include a meal, a nutritious, freshly made meal every day, made on campus and served to students and faculty. It will require a refrigerated and dry storage unit. This unit would go in the back parking lot, if you know where our dumpster is currently. This would go essentially right up against that structure.
Do they take away parking?
It would take away some parking spots, yes. No more than 2. Excuse me, it would take away 4 parking spots on each side, yeah.
Yeah.
Comments?
I'm fine in principle, but we have to see the devil in the detail.
Correct, yeah, we are happy to work with the town and community on the appearance of this unit. Whether we make structural changes to the actual unit itself, or we structure some kind of something around the unit that makes it fit in with the architecture of the school. Either way, it's fine, we are happy to do that.
So the neighbor, for example, was there, so we won't be able to see that.
No.
Is there any odor related to it? I don't think so, but. Yeah. So, a resident wouldn't even know what's in it.
No.
Yeah, I initially did not support this. So I met with Dr. Smith, we walked the parking lot. And based on where it was located, I don't think anyone would see it, notice it, and certainly adds a benefit to the school. As is explained in the memorandum. So I'm in favor.
This too would require amendment to the agreement.
Right.
It's a great idea.
No more quick machines.
So,
Oh,
so
it's-
we're just approving it, we're just approving the amendment to the developers agreement. It's gonna have to go through all the other.
Correct.
Yes, sir, that's correct. So we did meet with the school on this a little while ago. They had it in a different location, which would probably be more impactful to the budding residents. So they did move it, as Dr. Smith indicated, next to a dumpster. So to the extent that there's any additional odor or anything like that, I mean, it's already being generated in that location. which is, I mean, a good distance away from the house to the south at 3500 North Ocean. You know, and it's, you know, it's going to be, it continue to be screened. I think the issue with the developer's agreement limiting the building envelope was the impact on the neighbors. So there, you know, this is a refrigeration unit. There's not going to be kids running around playing in it. You know, there's not going to be instruction there. So I would think the noise impact is not going to be there. And as discussed, I think the visual impact is going to be minimal, if any. So just a little background from staff's perspective.
But will we need to know that's perspective?
Okay, so we would just need a motion to amend the development agreement to accommodate the project proposed at this meeting is submitted by Dr. Smith to be approved on a level 3 architectural site plan review.
Someone want to make a motion? I'll make a motion to amend the development agreement to accommodate the pre-fabricated refrigerated dry storage unit on the Gulfstream School property.
Second.
Ms. Bates?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Orthwyne?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very much. Let's move on to stormwater drainage agreement. Hello. Mr. Knopf.
And thank you, Mayor, I'm going to take this for the manager. So there is a renewal of a 20-year agreement we've had with the Little Club to manage the drainage. We currently have a pipe that runs from Old School Road and drains into the property. As some of you may know, we originally were negotiating a lake expansion to be part of the CIP project that was going to be constructed on the Little Club. We redesigned the project after some discussion with the Little Club to accommodate water quality within our right-of-way through exfiltration trenches. So some adjustments to the project have obviated the need for the lake expansion. However, we do need to renew this agreement, which expires next month after 20 years. It will adequately allow the town to continue to discharge a limited amount of stormwater drainage in extenuating circumstances. However, I would note that the CIP project is going to significantly decrease the amount of water that will need to discharge into the club. So, I mean, this is just, you know, again, a renewal of an existing agreement. And I would just refer to the agreement as far as the volume of water that is permitted to be discharged under those circumstances. So we just need a motion to.
I'm sorry, is there a drop down, and is there a date it's terminates?
So there is not, it's
6 months notice in the party?
under certain circumstances.
It's simply not to have what we had before. But this is something that subfloor water management would require us to be able to discharge in the event of they call it 25-hour storm, something like that, 3-day storm, additional water onto the property of the Little Club. We want to maintain that right in perpetuity. However, when we last discussed this issue, it was to enlarge the lakes on the golf course, which was significantly problematic both for the club and for the town. The engineers went back and reworked it so that the water bulkhead can be caught coming off A1A and channeled into trenches and swales in the core with only the major storm water being taken out to the club. So we would not need to enlarge the lakes or interfere with the operation of the Little Club storm. That's great. So it works out better for everyone. So is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the stormwater drainage amendment agreement.
Second.
Renee?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Orthwyne?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Let's move on to an agreement for accounting license services.
Thanks, Mayor. In your packet, you have two documents. One, the agreement related services, and then an engagement letter with Nolan Hope and Minor, who I'll call the contractor. As you already know, upon the resignation of CFO2, the town entered into an agreement for accounting and related services with Nolan Hope and Minor, the contractor. The agreement that we're in right now stipulated that services under such agreement shall not exceed $15,000 until ratified by the town commission at today's meeting. The recommended agreement piggybacks on a similar contract between Nolan Hope and Minor and the town of Lake Clark Shores. The terms, conditions, and specifications, including fees of said contract, are incorporated into Gulfstream's contract. And that agreement is attached to this document at the back of it. The proposed agreement or the agreement that we're proposing, however, allows Gulfstream to purchase services in greater or lesser amounts from the contractor that are set forth in the Lake Clark Shores agreement. So the only real difference with the two contracts is the opportunity for Gulfstream to purchase more or less of the services provided by the contractor than was estimated in the agreement between Clark Shores. Now, what you also have in your packet is an engagement letter from the contractor, and it sets forth the services expected of the contractor as provided in the agreement itself. So, upon the resignation, the staff, considered various ways to address the financial services for the town of Gulfstream. And we concluded that outsourcing financial services was a cost savings, of labor cost savings, of large labor cost savings to the town. The contractor, obviously, we're very familiar with them, been doing our audits for years, and very comfortable with them. I've known them 25 years since I've been here in Palm Beach County. We do, of course, have Lolita, who is a county clerk. She does have an accounting degree from UF, and we'll overlook that, but she does have local government experience in accounting in Broward County. And so that's our recommendation to you. Continue this. The fee schedule is, the contract is similar to our contract with engineers and with our attorneys. It's based on as needed, it's an as needed basis and based on the fee schedule.
Well, it should be an excellent mentor relationship as well for Lolita.
Right. Yeah, it does include training, and we do have Mark Bynester, who's here today with the contractor. He's done our audits for many years, and so he's here today. Ron Bennett, who you're used to coming to speak to you, he's laid up in his house with back issues, so he would get today. So right now, I would predict that we might be using them perhaps 4 to 6 hours a week in the beginning. And again, that includes training for Lolita. Last week, I met with Mark and Lolita for 4 hours as we put the financial statements together for you. And I will say that Ron has some suggestions for us to do some of our work a little different. So those are going to be some of the things that we'll be talking about early on, so the cost of this service probably is going to be uploaded at the beginning. And then, as Lomita gets used to the process, then that'll probably come.
Did you get any input from the town of Lake Clark?
Oh, yes, I know the manager there, and he had so many good things to say about the setup. I mean, we both know the contractor there, but he's glad that they did it. They've been doing it for about 2 years, and the town of Manalapan is in the process of doing the exact same thing that we're doing.
I think it's a good idea. It's a consistency going forward.
That's right.
It's instead of, someone leaving or.
Well, that was
Rather-
another consideration.
Yeah.
It would take quite a while to get somebody else for that position. So right now, we're not missing any beats.
Yeah.
This is a new structure, and we intend to eliminate the job that we had, and this will.
Yeah, this is replacing that.
And so we're gonna outsource it,
Correct.
and we're gonna save money.
Correct. That's, of course, an important part of our decision. Now, they obviously are our auditors, so we can't do both at the same time. And that's the subject of our next item on the agenda. Our contract with them wasn't terminated, it just ran out and we didn't sign the renewal. So that's how that came about.
Do we need to approve this engagement letter though?
We do, yes, sir.
Tom Smith?
Yeah, I move we approve the engagement letter between the town and Nolan Holton Minor dated December 30th, 2022.
Second that,
Renee?
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Orthwyne,
yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. And then the follow-up to that is we need to set an auditor selection.
I'd just like to note for the record that approving the document ratified the piggyback we had entered into on a temporary basis, just so we're clear. Thank you, Mayor. So we have our auditor selection committee, Florida statutes controls the procedure for auditors. This includes creating a 3-person committee that will develop and approve a bid document for auditing services. The chair for that committee is required to be someone from the town commission. I asked Commissioner Lyons, who served in that capacity when we formed one in January 3 years ago. So I asked him if he'd serve as the chair again, and he agreed. There was no prohibition on having multiple town commissioners on that 3-person committee. So I asked Chairman Smith if he would serve on that as well, and he agreed. We also, raise your hand, we're gonna call it.
Yes.
And then we also asked Tracy Stevens, who's the former town manager of Ocean Ridge, currently town administrator for Haverhill, and she agreed to be our 3rd person. So we would just need a motion to approve an auditor selection committee with Commissioner Lyons as the chair, with Commissioner Smith and Tracy Stevens as the other members.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Ms. Bennett?
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Orthwyne,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
So just from a timing perspective, we'll have our audit selection committee meet next week or really as soon as possible. They'll approve an RFP, which is largely reworking the one we put out 3 years ago. We'll have about 30 days for a response to come in. The audit selection committee will then meet and make a recommendation for probably in time for the March meeting. We'll get our auditor up to speed and getting that audit out within the required time.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Mayor, I've been approached by 3 or 4 people now who live along, what's this road? County Road, okay. They're fussing about visually being able to see through the foliage that we have. I know we're putting in a new fence, but they want more than a new fence. They don't want to be able to see the vehicles or the trucks or construction equipment that's parked there during the daytime. And I don't know how we can do that, but I'd like to at least on a future meeting, bring it up and discuss it. I don't know that it would be planting or,
I thought we had discussed
well,
So we cleaned that out. It sorely needed cleaning out, but it did leave some gaps. I think some are larger than others.
Mhm.
And if there's a possibility that we can do some planting in there to help fill those in, that's the best way to take care of it. I mean, our fence is being manufactured right now. So,
Is it gonna go behind the low hedge and in front of the Aretha palms, or is the fence gonna go behind the palm?
it'll be on the west side.
Right, on the west side.
So they
I
won't.
mean, one of them sent me a video, you know, showing it. So, I agree with them. I think that if we were leaving or driving down that road every day, you probably would comment too. So I think we as a town owe it to the residents.
I thought we discussed that once the fence was put in.
Yeah, and there's an existing hedge there that we're gonna let grow up. That takes some time.
Yeah, okay.
And so we're gonna let that grow up, but there are some spaces in there, and I need to get with Anthony, the Ricas and the root systems in there might provide, a problem for us, but we can work around that. We'll find ways to block it with vegetation.
But I think it's a consensus of the commission that you should be directed to do that.
Yes.
So fill in those gaps.
Most of us gotta wait till the fence goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Need to be patient.
Right.
Anthony can evaluate it.
Well, it's the update on the fence, it's being manufactured right. So.
Anything else to bring? If not, thank you all for attending. Sure. Hey, Chief. John?
Yeah.